It's very interesting that the puzzles in the game are literally like made to almost like glitch the game, because like you have to trap yourself and then just walk through a wall that you
once you're in
can't see.
here, actually, you can find a little place here to
It's very strange.
walk to the other side.
Okay, do I think this was actually
Here is you
a
have to get your
made
clone
game
over
or
there to
all animation?
overlap.
I think
Set
it's
this to,
100% a real game. I don't know how much is like pre-scripted
just like
or
that.
animated and how much is the character moving around, but just the way the character moves
totally
is something
get
that
that
is
one.
really hard to replicate
That's that.
with it. Like for instance, something like Bunny Farm looks really great, but there's just
Alright, so
something
this
to
one's
the
kind of
movement where you go, that's not really how a
the
game
idea
moves,
is
but
then you'll
this
just get rained on.
is very specifically like the
Flower
way,
comes over here,
the sort
you
of
guys.
erratic stuff of the movements, the little
Always comes to
moves,
that
the
exact
way that he
spot over there,
turns,
which you
like
can,
that is
get this bucket.
almost impossible to replicate. It would probably be easier to just
Exact
make
spot.
a game than try and animate it to look that
spot.
good.
Yeah.
Because I mean, Bunny Farm it
And
was a
that-
little different because
that
of the
happens,
style.
and you
The
can just
style was
catch 'em
a
both
2D
that way.
game that sort of is meant to like sort of be jerky and weird looking, but with this like 3D movement, it's
So,
really hard
yeah,
to
that's it
replicate
for
that.
Now I'm
Someone,
gonna show you the part
there's
that's
a
actually
community project called petscop, which is basically remaking petscop in Unity, and it's to a
Alright,
a
so I still
surprising
can't catch
degree
this
of
guy.
accuracy, but it looks like a PS1 game.
reason-
Yeah, my
down,
guess is the
down,
original was made
down,
in like Unity
right.
or something like that. I don't know how much I should spoil, because again, I already know what the plot is, but I will make observations as they happen.
Alright.
And now he's in the spooky place. I think there is something to be said, because people are talking right now about how scary the Petscop videos are. I think there's something to be said about why it was this era of games that Petscop was used in, not just for like nostalgia's sake, but also like, you think about it, Silent Hill, one of the things people always bring up about it is like the fog, but the reason they did that in the first place was because of the limitations of the PlayStation. They couldn't render that far out, so they decided to use it to their advantage and make everything super foggy. And there's something about like not having that, and Petscop uses this a lot in the, like the new Maker plane, the creepy dark area. It has this like black fog around it. It's very dark, and like having a game that isn't perfect, having a game that's graphics are old, means they can't show everything in really good detail. So you just get like an idea of what's going on, and it lets you sort of fill in the gaps with your imagination, I guess. It looking more crude and unfinished and like this era of game, I think it adds to it. It also gives a vibe, like Blair Witch also almost is what it reminds me of. Like it almost gives you the feeling of like the slight screen jitter and everything.
Hey, so
It gives you that
door
same vibe.
open.
Sound of dread and foreboding. There's the windmill, very important. One of the big mysteries of the whole. Oh, see, there's something you might miss. Yeah, right there. There it is. Here comes the funny part.
This is a little more than I was expecting to see.
Not really the funny part, but the memed part.
That's a dead kid.
It's the line, he said it. Even though nothing specifically supernatural has happened, it just makes things really ominous, and because you know the expectations that this is creepypasta related somehow, because of just the world of creepypasta, like Ben Drown and ARGs and stuff, you're on the edge of your seat because you're waiting for the jump scare to happen, but it never happens. Like, it doesn't use, but it uses the format of what it is to, like, freak you out. It's really good. It's also really good, like, writing. Like, a lot of ARGs have a hard time getting convincing dialogue because they're writing to film-like, which isn't how people talk. But this is really good at, like, interrupting himself, not really saying anything most of the time. Like, it's a very well done, like, dialogue. I'm pretty sure Petscop is over. I think the creator ended up having, like, a Twitter, but I think he's working on something else now. I don't know. I think what's so interesting about this game, I guess this is a little bit of a spoiler. How intentional the game is with what it's doing, but because Paul isn't the intended audience of it. It seems confusing. I'm just gonna stop the webcam for now. Tiara, that's an important character. Petscop kid, very smart. See, that doesn't seem to make any sense at first.
Next one.
But then,
Right.
later on, when you learn what Petscop kid actually means, it begins to make sense. It's so cool that a lot of times ARGs feel like they don't have answers or vague answers that you're just trying to extrapolate from like decoding all these numbers, but this just gives you things that you find out about later. When I was looking and planning this stream, I saw something that was like, oh yeah, it's like maybe 2 hours, 2 hours and 30 minutes maybe, like, you know, the length of like a regular movie. And it turns out that was outdated. The current is 5 hours. I really thought we were gonna be able to watch all of Petscop. Does not look like we're gonna be able to watch all of it. How long have we been? Yo! This is my first raid. Hold on, let me get off of We'll Be Right Back really quick. Jesus. Welcome to the stream, everybody. I wish I had a Germa raid song, but I don't. I gotta show this, because it's literally my favorite thing about Petscop. Petscop 21 can be perfectly linked to I Saw the Sign. And I can try and Ace of Base the sign. I can try to line that up myself. But I might end up just showing somebody else who had already done it. Someone did a video where they perfectly lined it up. I think I ended up lining it up actually pretty well. But it's just, it uses a lot of tropes of, whoa, dude, I perfectly synced that. That's insane. I perfectly synced that. Is Twitch gonna get pissed at me for playing copyright song, whatever? I'll use the German technique. That is probably my favorite Petscop video. And I know that sounds weird because it's just a goofy one, but I think it is really important, and it's something that I'm going to bring up in the actual video I'm making about Petscop. So many things fall into like the Five Nights at Freddy's trap of making all of the characters in a story like Petscop. Like, it makes them into like numbers in an equation you're trying to solve. Like, FNAF has like 1,200 dead kids, and the way that the community sees it is like 10 kids died here, and then 5 more kids died here, and then you add that up together, and that means they connect to these characters, and like there's no humanity in it at all. But a little bit of a spoiler, that is a recording. That specific video is supposed to be a recording of the game from like from the 90s, from when the game actually originally came out, of the character Care, who we've seen in the other Petscop things so far as this like child that clearly went through some trauma at some point. But what's so interesting about it is they have a whole video just dedicated to, here is a screen recording of that kid just as a kid, clearly in real life, like just listening to a song, The Sign by Ace of Base, and just dancing the character around. And it's like been saved. It's saved as Care dancing Sign. That adds, it's such an important part of the storytelling because it adds so much humanity to the actual characters that we are only vaguely seeing. I think that it's very important that they did that, because that they added that humanity to the characters, because not only is that just really adorable, I think that's really funny. Just the idea of this small child listening to The Sign and recording themselves dancing on a video game, especially having younger siblings, that is totally a real thing that would happen. But also, I think it's just very important to storytelling to make sure that you actually care about the characters. And that's just a really small way, but a really important way to do that. Okay, haha, hey, it's so weird. Like, parts of it seem like the AI is interacting directly with Paul. Most of it seems like it's made for Marvin. And then this part is just made for Belle. Like, why would they know that Belle is was going to play it eventually? Why would Rainer even know that? But again, I don't think I'm alone in being confused about this stuff. Like, most of the the full explanation theories, or even theories about a lot of stuff, like, don't know what to do with a lot of this information. Which I think is why people tend to go down the route of just being like, well, I think it's all metaphorical. Like, but there's too much specificity in it for me to think that it's metaphorical, like dates and times and characters and people and all that stuff. Like, there has to be an actual story going on. Right. So, the big revelation that I made is in Petscop 2 or 3. Paul says the game is trying to make it seem like there's something supernatural happening, like there's an entity trying to communicate with me through the game. But I don't think, then he says, but I don't think there is, because the way you can tell is if you can have a real-time back and forth with the entity, right? Like, the game is being too cryptic. If something was really haunting it, I'd be able to, it would come out and talk to me, and I'd be able to talk back, and we'd be able to communicate. That was like his point, that's how he knows it's not haunted. But then later on, this Marvin character introduces a whole text system where he's literally calling him by name. Like, so I think there is a supernatural element to it. And maybe that means the windmill isn't metaphorical. Maybe some shit is going on with parallel dimensions. I'm taking all these notes for a reason, because I'm going to make a hopefully pretty detailed video about this later. So yeah, thank you all for being here. I plan to stream again soon. Thank you all, and I will see you all later.